Darth Plagueis and Palpatine first met when Palpatine was still young and in college. Plagueis, who was going by the name of Higo Damask, knew that the young Palpatine was against Damask's political rivals on Naboo, so he enlisted the boy to spy for him. Particularly played on Palpatine's dislike for his father, who held political views contrary to his son and always kept his own son down, at least in Palpatine's eyes. Palps agreed to spy as long as he would report solely to Damask himself. As their relationship strengthened during the spy campaign, Plagueis was intrigued by the young boy and indeed felt that he was strong in the Force, although Palpatine may not have known it himself just yet. So now it fell on Plagueis to probe young Palpatine and determine if he could be a suitable Sith apprentice. What we'll look at today is how Plagueis seduced Palpatine to the dark side of the Force. All this comes from legends, in particular from the book Darth Plagueis, because we don't know anything about these events yet in the new canon. One of the first things that Plagueis sought to learn about Palpatine was what his aspirations were, since a Sith with no aspirations for greater power was hardly a recipe for success. One day, Plagueis asks him straight out, "What do you want to do, Palpatine? If the choice was yours and yours alone." The youth hesitated. "I don't want to live as ordinary beings live." Plagueis probed a bit more and finally asked, "How deep does your interest go? To what position do you aspire? Republic Senator? Monarch of Naboo? Supreme Chancellor of the Republic?" Palpatine took a breath and continued, "I want to be a force for change." His look hardened. "I want to rule." There, Plagueis thought. He admits it. And who better than a human to wear the mask of power while an immortal Sith Lord rules in secret?
If that can't happen, if you can't rule, then what?
Palpatine ground his teeth. If not power, then nothing. So now Plagueis has confirmed his suspicions that Palpatine is someone who already has the desire to rule. Plagueis meanwhile wanted the same thing, but as a Mun, he knew that he could never rise to the top of a galactic system prejudiced towards humans, but Palpatine could. Plagueis smiled.
Suppose I said that I would be willing to be your ally in the quest.
At a sudden loss for words, Palpatine stared at him. "What would you expect of me in return?"
Nothing more than that you commit to your intent to free yourself, that you grant yourself the license to do whatever is necessary to realize your ambitions, at whatever risk to your alleged well-being and in full expectation of the solitude that will ensue.
Translation, you need to free yourself from your family and anything else holding you back. Plagueis then tells Palpatine a disturbing story about how he threw his own family out of his way. Plagueis was born to his father's second wife on Maigito, so when Plagueis finally arrived to Moonlist, his half-siblings hated him, treated him as a second class, and sought to expel him from any claim on the family fortune. When his father fell ill unexpectedly, he told young Plagueis that he should do whatever he needed to do, as his very survival was in jeopardy. His father said that lesser minds needed guidance and punishment on occasion, and that Higo shouldn't hesitate to use whatever means necessary to protect his interests, that he owed as much to himself, his species, to life itself. Notice how Plagueis is already using his own relationship with his father to allude to Palpatine's relationship with his own father in his seduction to the dark. Plagueis continues his story by saying that his father died from a rare genetic abnormality that all of his siblings had to also inherit, except Plagueis because he had a different mother. His siblings scoured the galaxy for a cure and finally found a geneticist who claimed to have one. They all underwent treatments, thinking that had cheated death, but then they all started to die from the genetic problem regardless of their operations, until one of them were left and Plagueis was left with everything. Little did they know that Plagueis himself had hired the geneticist and the operations he performed were as phony as his credentials. Now, to most people, this story might scare us off once we learn that we've been mentored by a murderer, but not Palpatine. He gravitated towards it and took it to heart regarding his own father, who he viewed as the antithesis to everything he stood for and deserved in life. Shortly after, Palpatine's father, Consigna Palpatine, told Damask to stay away from his son or he'd regret it. Then he forbade Palpatine from seeing Damask again. But when both disobeyed and they continued their spycraft, Palpatine's father forcibly removed Palpatine from Naboo to attend college somewhere else. And it's here where we pick up the book again, as Palpatine is on the family ship with his parents and siblings, traveling to a world away from Plagueis. "This is for your own good," his father said. Palpatine's nostrils flared. "Father of lies. How would you know what's good for me? This is about my friendship with Ego Damask, isn't it?" Consignia Palpatine snorted in derision. "Is that what you think it is? Damask is merely using you as a means of securing information about our strategies for the election." "Of course he is." Taken aback momentarily, Consignia said, "And yet you continue to befriend him? What you consider the rape of Naboo, I consider to be an essential step forward, and Ego Damask a blessing. He's powerful, influential, and brilliant, more so than any of my professors. Head and shoulders above you or any of your royal confederates." Consignia's lip curled. "It begins to sound to me that this confrontation goes beyond mere political differences." "You know it does," sneered Palpatine. His father flung his words with cruel abandon. "It will be so good to have you gone. You admit as much. You are as much a mystery to me now as you were when you were young. I know that you are of my blood because I had you tested, just to be certain. But in truth, I don't know where you came from, who or what you're actually descended from." He glared at Palpatine. "Yes, there it is. That glower I have seen on the receiving end for 17 long years, as if you want to murder me. Murder has always been in your thoughts, hasn't it? You've merely been waiting for someone to grant your permission to act." A darkness came over Palpatine's face. "I don't need anyone's permission. I knew this day would come. I've known it since the first moment I tried to swaddle you, and you fought me with a strength that was too powerful for your size or age." Palpatine looked out from beneath his corked brows. "I was born mature, father, fully grown, and you hated me for it, because you grasped that I was everything you can never be." "Hated you more than now," Consignia said, allowing his ire to rise once more. "Enough to want to kill you from the start." Palpatine stood his ground. "Then you had better do it now." His father took a step in Palpatine's direction, only to be hurled back against the bulkhead separating the communications room from the main cabin. A female voice from behind the closed hatch asked in distress, "What was that?" Nursing an injured shoulder, Consignia looked suddenly like a trapped animal, his eyes wide with surprise and fear. He made a move to strike the handplate that opened the hatch, but Palpatine thwarted his effort without raising a finger. Twisting violently around, Consignia fell over one of the hatch acceleration chairs, bloodying his face as it struck the armrest. Pounding began on the hatch. Palpatine's mother rushed in and screamed, "Don't come in! Stay away from me! What have you done?" It was his mother's voice, panicked. "What have you done?" Consignia pushed himself to his knees and began a terrified retreat, leaving smears of blood on the deck. But Palpatine was advancing on him now. "If the Force birthed you, then I curse it," Consignia rasped. "I curse it!" "As I do," Palpatine growled. "Consignia!" his mother screamed. Palpatine pressed the palms of his hand to his head. Raising his face to the ceiling, he shouted, "We're all in this now." Palpatine goes on to kill his entire family and then contacts Plagueis in terror. What had he done? It's not so different from Anakin's moment of regret after he helped Sidious kill Mace Windu, but Plagueis here consoles Palpatine and tells him that he'll take care of the evidence. Then he congratulates him for emancipating himself from his family. A week later, they reconvene and Plagueis presses the young boy to reveal more about the powers he used to kill his family. Palpatine, though, feels betrayed by Plagueis, thinking that Plagueis goaded him into killing them and then now not doing anything to support him. Now in the book we read, Plagueis rose from the chair and approached him warily.
"Here is where the path bifurcates, young human. Here and now you need to decide whether to disavow your power or to venture courageously and scrupulously into the depths of truth, no matter the consequences."
He resisted an urge to grasp Palpatine by the shoulder, and instead paced away from him. "You could devote the rest of your life to try to make sense of this power, this gift," he said, without looking back. "Or you could consider a different option. It's a dark path into a trackless wilderness from which few return, not without a guide, at any rate. But it is also the shortest, quickest route between today and tomorrow." Plagueis realized that he was taking a great gamble, but there was no turning back from it. The Darkside had brought them together, and it would be the will of the Darkside that decided whether Palpatine became his apprentice. "In your studies," he said carefully, "have you ever learned of the Sith?" Palpatine blinked, as if preoccupied. "A Jedi sect, weren't they? The result of a kind of family feud," he said. Yes, in some ways, just that, but more. The Sith are the prodigal offspring. destined to return and overthrow the Jedi. Palpatine cut his eyes to Plagueis. The Sith are considered to be evil.
Evil?
Plagueis repeated.
What is that? Moments ago you defined yourself as a storm. Are you evil, then? Or are you perhaps stronger and more awake than others? Who gives more shape to sentient history? The good, who adhere to the tried and true, or those who seek to rouse beings from their stupor and lead them to glory? A storm you are, but a much-needed one, to wash away the old and complacent and prune the galaxy of dead weight.
Palpatine's lip curled in anger and menace. Is this the wisdom you offer? The tenets of some arcane cult? If I had wanted that, I would have forced my parents years ago to surrender me to the Jedi Order, instead of transferring me from school to private school. Plagueis laughed.
And of what possible use do you think a person of your nature would be to the Jedi Order? You're heartless, ambitious, arrogant, insidious, and without shame or empathy. More, you're a murderer.
He held Palpatine's hooded gaze and watched the youth's hands clench in fists of rage.
Careful, boy,
he said after a moment.
You are not the only being in this plush stateroom with the power to kill.
Palpatine's eyes opened wide and he took a step back.
I can sense it.
Plagueis grew deliberately haughty.
What you sense is a fraction of what I can bring to bear.
Palpatine appeared suitably chastened. Might I be of some use to the Sith?
Possibly.
Plagueis said.
Perhaps even likely. But we would have to wait and see. Where are the Sith?
Plagueis allowed a smile.
Just now, there's only one. Unless, of course, it is your will to join me.
Palpatine nodded. I do wish to join you.
Then kneel before me and pledge that it is your will to join your destiny forever with the order of the Sith Lords.
Palpatine stared at the floor, then genuflected, uttering, It is my will to join my destiny forever with the order of the Sith Lords. Plagueis extended his left hand to touch him on the crown of the head.
Then it is done. From this day forward, the truth of you, now and forevermore, will be Sidious.
When Palpatine stood, Plagueis took him by the shoulders.
In time, you will come to understand that you are one with the dark side of the Force, and that your power is beyond contradiction. But just now, and until I tell you differently, abiding submission is your only road to salvation.
So what do you think of how Plagueis tempted Sidious to the dark side? He used the two things Palpatine wanted, power and self-independence. Palpatine wanted to rule, but as long as he allowed himself to be under the familial, political, and financial power of his father, then he could never achieve that goal. So Plagueis tempted to kill his family and thus achieve the power that only a Sith can achieve. What do you think about this whole temptation? Would you want to see this in the new canon, or would you want to see something different? If so, let me know in the comments down below. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll cover more stuff from the Darth Plagueis novel. Until the next episode, remember, the Force will be with you, always.